This episode is brought to you by Benjamin Moore and Sherwin-Williams.
Welcome back to another episode of the Elite Business Advice Podcast. My name is Chris Moore, the founder of Elite Business Advisors, your host for the podcast. All right, I got to admit this. I'm a quote person. I love a good quote, but I also believe that hearing a quote and doing nothing with it and forgetting it is literally a waste of your time, right? It's kind of like reading books, listening to podcasts, listening to audiobooks, and not applying anything you read, right? Maybe going to an event, taking time to attend a workshop and just, oh, cool. Yeah, I got some good information. Great. And then moving on with it, right? Doesn't change your thinking. You never go back to it. And so I'm not like the cliche, like I share Facebook quotes on Facebook all the time, right? Like, live, laugh, love, right? Like I don't mean that, but I mean something that you can take away and say, oh, that's a good thought, right? And so today I'm going to share with you 12 quotes. Let's just call it pieces of advice, rather, that have been impactful for me, or that I believe will be helpful for you on your entrepreneurial journey here in the painting industry or insert business here. Because this applies, all 12 of these applies in every industry, every type of business, in my truthful opinion. And so I hope it helps. Thanks for plugging in. This is the Elite Business Advice Podcast. I always say we're going to do a quick tactful episode. And sometimes Chris gets long-winded. So we're going to try to keep this in a tactful spot. We're going to mix it up a little bit. We got interviews starting again next week. I'm excited for the next few that we've got lined up here. So again, we're trying to get a good mix here on the show here in season 5. But I wanted to rapid fire through 12 pieces of advice, right? Now I was going to do like 5. And then I was like, we'll do like 7. And then I just kept going on like things that have been impactful for me and lessons learned and things I've heard and like all this. And I ended up at 12 and I was like, I got to cap it somewhere because I could easily end up with like 36. And so maybe we'll just do this in 3 parts throughout the year or something. So number 1, the worst business decisions get made in times of desperation. So the goal here is to not be desperate, right? I think as humans, when we feel that desperate, we have that scarcity mindset. We tend to be irrational. We tend to make decisions that are short-sighted. I think part of it's our survival instinct. But the worst business decisions will always get made in times of desperation. What do I mean by that? You need another painter. You need somebody tomorrow because you're in a bind. You're going to probably make a bad hiring decision. You need work because you have no work past next week and you need money to survive. So you take on a project that maybe you shouldn't have taken on, but you kind of need to because you're afraid that you won't have anything, right? You are in a tight spot financially. And so you have to take out one of those kind of bridge loans, a line of credit, working capital, something with like a really high interest rate, like not favorable terms, but like you just have to do it, right? And so it's okay, because sometimes that's just part of the journey. But at the end of the day, we have to try to focus on what's the bigger picture and how do we avoid getting in those spots. Okay, that's all I'm going to say on that one. I could, again, have a 10-minute dissertation on each of these 12, but I'm not going to have a 120-minute episode. Number 2, if you don't set a date, you'll always be doing what you're doing. This one's personal to me. This is something my mentor said to me in October of 2018. As we were sitting down having lunch and we were talking about life and goals and all this stuff. And I'll never forget, Mark Warren, if you hear this, thank you for this. This was the most impactful line I've ever heard in my life. We're talking and he said, what do you want to achieve in the next 5 years? And I was like, well, Mark, I really want to kind of start getting out of this painting business and start working on building this coaching company, consulting company, whatever I called it. I really want to start working towards that. And that's when he stopped. He said, what's the date you're going to make that switch? And I said, what do you mean? He said, you don't set a date. 6 years from now, we're going to be having lunch and I'm going to ask you what you want in the next 5 years. And you're going to tell me the exact same thing. And you're going to still be running your painting company. I went home that night. I told Christina, I said, December 31st, 2019, I am done with the painting company and we're doing this thing. All right. Gave myself a year, a little bit over a year to start building towards it. This also applies. If you're telling me I want to estimate on the spot, I want to do on the spot estimates. I want to do it. Fantastic. Set a date. Called out 2 people on our mastermind a couple weeks ago in a good way because they said this. And I said, great, just give me a date. Just give me a date. I don't care if it's 3 months from now. I don't care if you're busy and you need time to get there. Great. 3 months from now, set the date. Let's put an action plan together to get there. Okay. Whatever it is, this applies to anything in your business. When you say, I want to but you're not doing it. It's because you don't have a firm date set and a mindset to make it happen. I feel a little spicy today, and this is fun. Should do these more often. Number 3, structure is the way to leading the life you want. What are your daily non-negotiables? What are the things that you know you need to do every day to live the life you want and be the person you want, be the leader you need to show up to be and show up for your family as a husband or a spouse or a mother or father, grandparent, whatever, right? What are the things you know you need to do? And what's the structure behind it to make sure that happens each and every day? We got to start with big rock priority planning first and then schedule everything else around it. And that's hard. I will truthfully sit here and tell you it's something I struggle with. So I'm talking to myself here as much as this, but I know it's what I have to get better at. And it's what I'm working on every day to get better, to schedule time, to work out and schedule my day around it. Because guess what? When I've done it before, it's been fine, right? We just came out of the busiest 6 months I think I've had in a really long time. And so, yeah, it's been a struggle for me to try to make it that priority, right? But I know that I can do it. And I know that I need that structure back in my life. That's why I started plugging into another coaching program because I need somebody like that and that constant accountability in my life. Yes, coach has a coach. All coaches should have coaches, FYI. Number 4, routines, especially morning routines, are the key to getting ahead. Does it feel ironic that that came after structures the way to leading the life you want? A little bit, right? I don't know a single person that is successful, again, to find that how you want, that I look up to, that wakes up after 7 o'clock every day. Almost would argue that wakes up after 6:30, maybe even 6 o'clock. And if you don't do that, I'm not saying you can't be successful, but I'm saying the odds are people I know that are on the 4:30, 5:30 a.m. club, those are the ones that typically have the results that I'm after personally. So keep that in mind. But I love my coach and mentor, Dan Martell, always says, he's like, I will go to bed at 9 o'clock so that I can wake up at 4:30, 5 o'clock, whatever time he's getting up. He's like, I don't care. He said, most people set a wake up alarm. He said, I actually set a bedtime alarm that when my alarm goes off at 9 o'clock, I need to be in bed and trying to go to sleep within 15 minutes. I was like, that's actually good. Number 5, it's not about what you say yes to. It's about what you say no to. We all want to be yes people. We all want to please people. We all want to be good servants and do all these things, right? But at the end of the day, sometimes learning to say no is the best thing you could do, right? Because when you get stretched too thin, you break your focus. In your business, early on, you have to say yes to almost everything just to get going, to get it off the ground. And then eventually the script flips and you have to start saying no to things because they really aren't worth your time at that level. And that's a hard thing, right? We say, that's not worth my time. We feel like, oh, it's so below us. It's not even that. It's that it financially does not make sense for you to be doing it. Again, I'm talking to myself here because I have to remind myself that every single day, like, what are the tasks that only Chris should be doing? Because these are the like $200, $300, $400 an hour tasks, even though I might not be getting paid time for money for them, but that's the value of that time that I'm putting into whatever it is that I'm working on. That's what I have to be doing, not the $20 an hour tasks or anything like that. And no offense to anybody that helps do those tasks, but we have to think that mentality, right? Remember early on in my painting company, we did wallpaper removal. We did a lot of things, right? We should not have been doing wallpaper removal. We had no clue the best way to take off wallpaper, but we figured out how not to do it. And eventually we got busy enough with interiors and cabinets that we said no, right? And even as we started building Elite Business Advisors here again in 2018 into 19 into 2020, when I made the full-time leap and I wasn't really ready financially to make the full-time leap, I still did it. And then we figured out what were we good at. All right. I remember during 2020, during COVID, like we had, I think 3 or 4 different clients, like we were running their social media campaigns. We were doing their organic posting. We were running their ads. We were doing some Google stuff. We were doing some email marketing. Like we were doing a bunch of stuff. We did it well. We just eventually realized like that wasn't like the niche we wanted to serve. But in the beginning, it paid some bills. We were able to help out some customers. It helped us figure out some things on how to coach it better. But we realized like that wasn't us long term, right? Now if somebody's like, hey, will you do this? I'm like, yeah, no, that's just not how we're set up, right? And that's okay because you evolve and change over time. Number 6, this one is straight from Dan Martell. I have to give him credit for it, especially because in case you get really mad at me about this, I want you to get mad at Dan, not me. But I love this quote. He said, "Broke people buy distractions, rich people buy time." And you might think, well, Chris, that's ironic because Dan wrote the book called Buy Your Time Back. But I think it's a mentality shift, right? It's a lot easier for us to buy things that are going to distract us. But how often do we think about buying our time back? That's why I signed up and doing coaching with Dan, was because I read that book and I realized like that's the thinking, that's the mentor I need in my life for all of our sake, right? Because when Chris is doing the $20 an hour tasks, I'm doing it as service to all of you guys, to all the other people that we're trying to serve, to the industry, to everything we're trying to do in this business for us and for you guys and for our clients. I'm actually doing all of you a disservice if I'm doing the $20 an hour tasks. So I need to figure out how to buy my time back with the right people and processes to focus on the things I should be doing, right? Number 7. Oh, this is a hard one. I'm going to say it anyways. Self-esteem is the reputation you have with yourself. Bottom line, when you make a decision and you don't follow through on it over time, you'll stop believing on yourself. Have you ever heard of the compound effect? I love that. Darren Hardy is one of my favorite books. Talks about the little things that add up over time, right? And when you make the right decisions, it compounds in a positive way. When you make the wrong decisions or you don't follow through, it actually compounds in a negative way. And eventually you'll stop believing in yourself, right? Think about it. If you had a friend that always told you they were going to do X, Y, Z, and they never did it, how many times would it take until you literally were like, cool, dude, I don't believe you, right? But we do it to ourselves every single day. How many times we say, we're going to get up at 5 a.m., 5:30 a.m. And again, I'm talking to myself here on some of this. Mornings, I'm a morning person. I love it. But again, if I'm not asleep by 9 or 9:30, it's really hard for me to get up at 5 or 5:30 like I need to. I also don't rest well. So I'll go hard until 10 o'clock and then crash and burn. So I'm trying to give myself some grace and change some habits. But man, like when we do that to ourselves each and every day, it's hard for our self-esteem to be good. Okay. Number 8. No one will take your business seriously if you don't. Let that sink in for a second. Most of you guys listening to this are probably taking your business at least somewhat seriously because you're listening to this podcast and you're plugging into content, trying to better yourself. And I hope I haven't disappointed you in this episode. But nobody's going to take your business seriously if you don't. I actually had to tell one of our clients this because they kept complaining about the employees that they were hiring that didn't work out, that would leave after a week or two, or just turn into garbage employees. And I finally looked at them and I said, blank, insert their name there. I said, nobody's going to take your business seriously if you don't. Let's change some stuff. Let's start thinking like a business owner and put some things in place to show that you think like a business owner and you got your crap together. Nobody's going to take it seriously if you don't. You take your business seriously, people will start to take their job seriously, in which you'll build a winning organization. Number 9. I am spicy today. I don't even think I'm sorry about it. If it offends you, then I do apologize. Sometimes I just feel like I got to get a little spicy with people because I just want everybody to succeed. That's why. It's coming from the right place. My heart and intentions there. Number 9, you can't complain about the results from the work you didn't do. I don't think I need to say any more than that. I see people complain about what they have or don't have, why they have it or don't have it, but yet they didn't do anything to get there. Put the work in, right? I understand it can be frustrating at times. I understand that it's a process, and sometimes you have to trust the process, as Marcus Lemonis says. I think he's got that trademark, so I really felt the need to give him credit there. Trust the process. Put the work in. Get the results. I always heard the term PDCA and not Painting, Decorating Contractors Association, but PDCA, plan, do, check, adjust. Plan, do the work, check and see what worked and what didn't, adjust, and do it all over again. Yeah, I'm just going to apologize for the spiciness. Number 10, the way you practice is the way you play. I always heard this growing up. Always heard this in sports. I heard this playing golf. I heard this playing hockey. I heard this in everything. And guess what? It applies in business and life too. The way you practice is the way you're going to play. And you think, well, Chris, I don't go to estimating practice. You're right. But guess what? The small things turn into the big things. Remember the self-esteem conversation we just had? All the small things and how you practice turn into the big things and how you got to show up to play. Right? So again, be serious about it. treat those small things like big things, and you'll start playing. Well, I don't know. There was an analogy there. It's gone. But you get the baseball, golf, hockey analogy into the small things turn into the big things. Okay. Here's a perfect example. I just feel the need to like rebound from that one. You're having a conversation with somebody at a networking event. You've never met them. They've never met you. They don't know anything about your company. The way you converse there probably leads into the way you converse during your estimates and sales. So while to you, that conversation might be minuscule, it may not mean anything to you. You may not care if anything comes of it. The conversation you have there and the way you conduct yourself, the questions you ask and the way you talk to them is probably going to carry through into the bid you're going to go do after the event. See, I knew I'd bring it home. It just took me a minute. All right, number 11. I saved my two of my favorites for last. Number 11, this one came straight from Drake, the singer. Said, started from the bottom, now we're here. You're like, how on earth are you going to bring this one home? Let me tell you, my friend. We all started this business from nothing. There's a handful of people maybe listen to this. You bought into a company or you worked for a company and then bought out the owner, or, like there's some situations that maybe you didn't completely start this from the ground up. But I would guess for 98% of the people listening to this, you started your business with nothing, right? Maybe you put some money into it to get it going. But at the end of the day, you had 0 employees and you wore every single hat in that business and you figured out how to grind and make it work. I always remember Jason Paris says, I started with a paintbrush and a dream. I feel like he didn't paint much, but anyways, that's not the point. Point is, we all started from nothing. And you've built your business wherever it's at right now, good or bad. And yes, there's things to work on, but guess what? Think about what that looked like. Think about what it took to get there. And at the end of the day, if you're still standing here and you have a business, regardless of where it's at, you've achieved something. Unless you started it yesterday, but you should still be proud you made it 24 hours. So don't ever forget that. And that leads me into number 12, the final one, and one of my favorites. Enjoy the journey. Because when you stop and think about where you came from, you stop and think about the journey you've been on to where you're at right now, you're going to have an appreciation for where you're going. I did an episode a long time ago about how having a growth mindset can be a hard thing, because as entrepreneurs, most of us have growth mindsets, and not that we have to 10x tomorrow. Shout out to my 1.1xers out there. But we have that growth mindset that we always want to be better. We always want to strive to get better. We want to, become better. We need to fix this system. We need to fix this process. I need to create this resource. I need to create this document. I need to do XYZ to become better because I want to have a better organization, better lead my employees, and better serve my customers, and therefore better serve our market and have more money to serve people, right? That's our mentality. We forget about everything along that journey. And the reason this is one of my favorites is Charlie LeCarry, one of my early mentors. He was one of the owners of Student Painters. He was my direct boss, and we worked together, built a great friendship, and a lot of things. I learned so much from him. But he signed every email on his signature for the 7 years I worked there with him. Said, enjoy the journey. It was part of his signature built into it. And it was our reminder, is my reminders. I'm 19 years old and I don't know anything about how to apply paint. And I'm just learning how to estimate a house. That Charlie's reminded me to enjoy the journey. And I had no clue what I was getting into that day or those days, or where this thing was going to go, or the journey I was going to go on and still be here in the painting industry. But man, I've enjoyed the journey with it. And sometimes I lose sight of that. But that was ingrained in my head at age 19 that it was going to be a journey and I needed to enjoy it because it's a beautiful thing. So stop and think about where you came from and make sure you enjoy the journey forward.